Hi guys, it's Kate and Bailey's here with me. We're gonna do a kind of different video today. I want to tell my birth story with our son Finn. I mean, both of our kids' birth was pretty intense and pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But Finn's was horrible. It was probably.
It's like one thing after another.
So to get started, Finn's actual due date was January 24th, I believe. And so on December 18th, actually, I woke up and I felt water down there. And at first I was like, did I really pee myself? Like, how? So I got up, went to the bathroom, and when I stood up, more water started trickling down. And at that moment, I was like, this is not pee. My water's breaking. My water's breaking right now. And I was freaking out because, again, it's December 18th. He still had a whole month before he was due. And that month is very crucial because their lungs are being developed.
Eyes.
A bunch of things are being developed at the time. No, I don't think eyes.
No?
No, I think it's like lungs and stuff like that. And Bailey was sleeping in the bed, and I was screaming at him to get up because my water was breaking. And he got up and he goes, "Stop it! Your water is not breaking."
Well, because it was a month early, and it was like, it's just too early, and I didn't believe it. I thought she just peed herself. I was going with that.
So I called my doctor, and they didn't answer. So we waited an hour before calling back because no water had trickled out. It was slowly trickling. It wasn't like bam, like waterfall. It was just slowly trickling. And then I told them what was going on, and they told me to come to the hospital right away so they could check me out. A little background, I started having contractions in November. I told my doctor, well, not my doctor, she's like a nurse practitioner kind of person. And I told her about it, and I even went to the hospital, and they gave me a note saying, yeah, she is having full outblown contractions. We gave her something to stop the contractions. And they said, no, they're just Braxton Hicks. The hospital's telling me I'm having full-blown contractions. I know what contractions feel like. I've had a baby before. So then they tell us to go to the hospital because of that reason. So we went and dropped off Talia with his mom. And they said, we told them don't get your the baby might it might not actually be my water breaking. It could be pee, they said. So we go to the hospital, and they put us in a room, and they said they were gonna run a bunch of tests. So we stayed there for 5 hours, maybe more, waiting for these tests to come back. And during that time, I could just feel my water just coming out. And the nurse comes in and says, we're going to have this baby soon. We're having this baby within today or tomorrow. And so it was my water breaking. They told us that I had gotten my water got cut open or slit open or something like that. It was slowly breaking. It wasn't fully breaking. There's a little cut in it or something like that. And I had gotten an infection. My whole body had gotten an infection, and Finn's whole body had gotten an infection. And so they immediately put me on IV and antibiotics, and they gave me a steroid shot to help develop his lungs.
That was her favorite part.
And I was in labor for that whole day. The whole day. They didn't give me Pitocin, nothing. They made me labor by myself. Which was really hard because, again, he was a month early, and I don't think he was actually ready to come. I think my water was just
leaking.
Yeah. So they had me walking around, bouncing on balls, and trying to get him to come. And so then finally they said, okay, you know what, we're going to give you epidural, we're going to give you some antibiotics to start getting this infection out of you. And the antibiotics burned so bad. I remember sitting in the room screaming and crying because of how bad these antibiotics hurt.
She had one IV and she had like 6 or 7 different things, medicine going through them. So, yeah, she was not having a good day.
And so then around 9 at night, they come in and check me, and I'm finally like dilating and, you know, finally getting up there. And so during the night, that's when everything started going really, really bad. Obviously, baby coming early is already really bad, and to top that off, he had an infection, which made it even worse. So, around 10 or 11, I was on a ball bouncing, trying to like push my labor a little faster. And I stood up, and my water full on broke everywhere. And the nurses come in, and they get me into the bed, and they're like, okay, your water's broken. You should start contracting a lot more. So that's what happened. I started contracting a lot more. And I did get the epidural. I have to, because anytime I get the contractions, my heart rate goes up, and so the only thing that stops it is my epidural. And so it was like early in the morning, like 1 or 2 in the morning. And Bailey was going to bed, and I remember feeling like a really lightheaded and like not well. And to me, I was like, you know what, it's just an epidural. It's nothing to worry about, because with Talia, I got sick because of the epidural. It's just a lot for my body to handle, but I have to have it.
And they had her on the highest dosage.
Yeah. And so then Bailey fell asleep, or was laying there trying to fall asleep, and 5 or 6 nurses bust our door open and come rushing in, grab an oxygen mask, throw it over my head. There's nurses monitoring the baby and looking at my oxygen levels and my heart rate and Finn's heart rate and his oxygen levels. And his heart rate started dropping. And my oxygen levels were really, really low. I had to have the oxygen mask on the whole entire time. And so they started getting stressed out and started rolling me over. And they finally got me into a position where I was, like, my oxygen went up and his heart rate went up, so I was in that position for a while, and then it happened again. I had, this time it was like 2 or 3 nurses, and because I already had the oxygen mask on, so they come in and they look at his heart rate, flipping me around, and this went on for a good 3 hours, where I was just getting flipped around, trying to find a perfect, like, place for my oxygen to be okay and his heart rate to be okay. And I was also getting those antibiotics, and I was just screaming in pain because it literally just burned my whole entire arm. And it was I cannot explain the pain of that. And so then finally I got to get like maybe an hour or 2 of sleep, and Bailey fell asleep, and then the nurses wake me up again because my oxygen levels are really low. And this is around like 7, I think, and they start, they call the doctor on what is it? On call. And he says, oh no, this was like 6, because they were going to make changes. So this is around 6. And they call him in, and he's looking at Finn's heart rate and what's happening to me, and he's told, like, if this baby doesn't come soon, we're going to have to do a C-section, because either you or your son are going to die if we keep going like this. So Bailey's not awake for any of this, and I'm over here like, what am I and the nurses refused to wake up Bailey. I kept asking, will someone please wake up my husband? Will someone please wake him up? And I'm bawling my eyes out, and they refused to wake him up. And
I'm a very deep sleeper, just so I'm not like ignoring her. I'm just a really deep sleeper.
Like, if you want to wake up Bailey, you have to like beat on him.
She has to like 5-star me to wake me up in the middle of the night.
And so I'm like acting like, please somebody wake him up, and they're like, no, we're not gonna wake him up until it's time to push. I was like, well, I mean, that's really my choice, but okay. So then rounds change, and my actual OBGYN comes in, and he put off a C-section for me well, not put it off, but push it a little further so he could sit in there and watch me and figure out what he wants to do. And so around 8, I was finally at 10 centimeters, and they said they didn't want to wait any longer. Like, already it was way too long of waiting. Finn was in trouble. I was in trouble. So they get everything ready and start letting me push. And again, I had the oxygen mask on, and they were telling me when to push because I can't feel my contractions at all. And Finn wouldn't come out. So they had to use like this vacuum thing and suck him out. And they told me like, oh, you know what? We might not even have to take him to the nursery because yes, he was a month early, but he was a big baby for a preemie.
Yeah, he was.
He weighed 6 pounds and 6 pounds and 7 ounces.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think so.
And so they're like, you know what? We might not have to take him to no, it was like the NICU or something like that.
Yeah, it's called the NICU.
So, because he was a big baby and they were really happy about that. And so he stayed in there. So I finally fell asleep because obviously giving birth takes a lot of energy and a lot of, like, you're just dead afterwards.
You'd be left alone for a little bit.
And Bailey stayed up with Finn and just held him and took care of him. And I slept for an hour. I woke up and they come in and tell me, no, we have to take him to the NICU. There's something, the infection or something is bugging him or something like that. And we're like, okay, take him to the NICU. So they take him to the NICU, and we're in our room, obviously, and they keep watching me because my oxygen levels are finally, like, getting up there better and stuff. And I finally get to go see him and hold him and stuff, and they have him in a private little room in a hard tub, like what?
It's like a bassinet, but plastic with this thin little mattress. So it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. And he's hooked up to all these cords and stuff, and if you lay him wrong, the cords go off, and it was really... And he had to be in a swaddler the whole time. He couldn't be in any clothes that we brought for him.
They refused to put him in our clothes.
So then we're like, okay, whatever. The next day, they moved me downstairs. And I was not okay with, like, me, I love being with I want my baby by my side so I know what's happening 24/7. Like, I'm one of those moms, like, you're not touching my baby if I don't know you. You're not taking my baby without me being there. It's just, that's how we are. We did that with Talia, too. Mm-hmm. And so I was very upset about that. And, so we have some rules for the nurses. I know, rules. You're going to be like, rules? You're not parents. So Talia, when she was born, they gave her a binky, and she is addicted to her binky, needs it to sleep,
this day.
And we don't know how to break her from it.
Speaking of.
So we asked them, like, don't give him any binkies, please, and don't give any bottles until I can get him to breastfeed.
Yeah, and we wrote on the little whiteboard they had right above his bassinet, it said no binkies at all.
And they gave him a bottle, and so it was hard for him to latch on, because I went in there when I could to go feed him. And they said that was okay. And then, so we're breastfeeding him for a while when he finally did latch on. And then came to the day where I was being let go, but Finn had to stay at the hospital. And I was crying because there's no mom in this world that will be okay with leaving their baby at a hospital without them.
Especially a premature baby who has all these problems. Like, I mean, he was on a feeding tube. Yeah,
he had a feeding tube. He had jaundice.
Oh, actually, hold on, move back up a second. So about the whole feeding thing. So she would go in there and try and breastfeed them. And then the nurses straight up told her that she's not allowed
to... Not yet.
Oh.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
We'll get back to that.
So we... where was I?
Jaundice.
So he had a feeding tube and he had jaundice. Of course, he was a preemie. He had that infection. What else? He had a spitting up problem.
He spit up everything.
So he had to stay at the hospital, and I was crying, holding him, and just letting him know, like I love him, and I'm so sorry for leaving him. But I also had to worry about Talia. I had to come home and be a mom to Talia. And they offered me a room there, but I told them, I said, I don't know, I have to go, because I have a daughter at home, and my family already took days off. His family, my family were taking days off work so they could watch her and be with her. And so I was like, no, we need to go home. We have a daughter at home. And I was crying because I wanted to stay, but I also wanted to go be with Talia, obviously. And they called CPS on us because I was crying holding him. And the CPS guy came to my room.
And I wasn't there.
No, you were there.
Oh no, that was the first time.
Yeah, we got called CPS the first time because we were teen parents.
Yeah, and they waited until I left to go question her alone.
I had just given birth, nobody was in the room, and CPS came in and
she was underage as well.
Yes. They only asked because they called CPS because I was a teen, which is complete bullshit, honestly. But then they called CPS again on us, and we're not bad parents. Our kids are fed, they're dressed, we don't beat them, like...
They have easy lives.
And so he comes down, and he straight up asked, like, do you think you're a fit mother? And he even asked, like, do you think your wife is a fit mother? And we got really pissed off, and we were like, well, you just need to leave because... Like, we explained to him why they were called. And even the CPS guy was like, really? They're mad because you're crying? Like, your emotion, like, hormones are crazy while you're pregnant. And it doesn't just end right when you give birth to the baby. So, we got to leave. And we would come back, every, 2 hours or something?
We went back to the hospital every 2 hours. Like, it's not that far of a drive. It's like 10, 15 minutes. So it's not horrible, but I mean, we were there all the time.
Yeah.
And then...
And to top it off, we had to always find someone to watch Talia because they said that Talia wasn't allowed in the NICU, which is understandable because there were some babies in there that were
and a lot of
really
people
sad.
were sick.
Yeah. And so we would go all the time, and I would pump. Since I wasn't always there, I would pump and give them bottles of breast milk so they could feed him. And so one day we came... And Finn had a pacifier in his crib with him. And I called a nurse over and I asked her what this was. And she said that he was crying too much for her, so she gave him a pacifier. When I say these nurses didn't pick up these babies at all, didn't try and hold them, didn't try and sit there and be with them at all. And they... even when the baby there was sometimes we'd come in with Finn. He's a newborn preemie. Would come in and the bottle was propped up while he's laying down in this bassinet, propped up, and he's just eating it like that. They don't hold the babies while they're feeding them at all. And they're really, if you're a teen parent, there was other parents in there that weren't teen parents. Treated them so nice, so kindly, and anytime we would walk in, it would be like, we didn't know how to raise kids. We didn't know how to do this. We didn't know how to do that. I got yelled at for how I fed so I got yelled at because I was breastfeeding. They said that I wasn't allowed to breastfeed anymore because they didn't know how much...
they couldn't measure it.
How much milk he was eating.
So they said she could breastfeed a little bit and then give him a bottle.
No, they said I couldn't breastfeed at all.
Oh.
Because I had to stop breastfeeding, and that's why my milk supply... I didn't have any anymore. And they, there was sometimes we, would go in there and Finn would have dried spit up all over him. And it was the saddest thing because he's this tiny little baby and he has dried spit up on his face, all on his outfit. And I would have to go in and complain and be like, look, I need something. I will freaking change him. Why didn't you guys change him? Why didn't you guys go check on him?
To this day, if we lay him in a bassinet and walk away, he'll scream until somebody comes back. He
has to sleep in a bed. He has to...
be able to touch somebody.
He has to touch somebody, and if you leave a room for too long, he freaks out. You can't leave him. He has very much emotional...
abandonment issues or being alone. He
doesn't like it at all. It makes it so sad. I wish I could explain to you guys how bad it is for him. He has, if we were to put him down for a nap, he doesn't feel anybody, he freaks out and won't take a nap. He has to feel you. And he, like I said, the dry spit up, and that's what pissed us off. We went off on nurses, and they went off on us.
Oh, yeah. They tried to kick us out.
And my mom called and complained to the head of the hospital, and they called the nurses, and the nurses came and talked to me and apologized for the way they were acting and apologized for everything that they were doing. And I mean, you could totally tell it was BS. Like, they didn't really care how we felt. They didn't really care how anything was. They weren't going to lose their jobs over it, so they didn't care. And I mean, when I was there was a baby screaming right next to Finn. Like, she was a really, really, really early baby.
Yeah, she had to be in like an incubator with the UV lights.
And her mom had a C-section and couldn't walk from the... So the delivery room is a floor above the recovery center for women. And the mom was having she was having such a hard time and could not come and see her baby all the time. And the baby would just be screaming, and I mean screaming, and these ladies would do nothing at all. They would just sit there at their little station and just sit there and talk. And so then they have like a nurse practitioner there. So they have a doctor for the babies, and then they also have a nurse practitioner that kind of get together and like, well, should we let this baby go? Should we let this baby go? What are we going to do for this baby? So so a week went by, I believe. Like, we weren't even allowed to spend Christmas with him.
No, we tried to convince them. Never mind, you keep going. That's later.
So Finn had a feeding tube, obviously, but we figured because he had a spitting up problem, but they never burped him. They never fed him while holding him, or they didn't like take it out and burp him in between. So obviously he's gonna spit up. Mm-hmm. And then they gave him, so he would eat as much as he wanted. And then they told us he had to finish a whole bottle before he could come home. And these bottles are like, what?
Like 60, 80 milliliters.
I don't know. But they're not even Talia. When Talia was born on her exact due date.
And she was 7'11". She was a fat kid.
And she didn't finish full bottles. I had other moms coming to talk to me and like, my kid didn't finish a full bottle when they were born. Yeah. So we were like, what the heck? Like, why do we have to sit here and let him finish a bottle that he's just going to spit up because it's too much for him?
Yeah, and if he did finish a bottle and spit up, it doesn't count.
Yeah, they said it didn't count.
He couldn't spit up at all or any of it.
So finally they said, okay, we'll take the tube out because he's eating pretty good. So they took the tube out, but then...
They threatened to put it back in.
Yeah, they threatened to put it back in because he spit up again. And... So then we were sitting there and we're like, okay, since he's got his feeding tube out, when do you think he can come home? Then it was, oh no, he can't come home because he has jaundice. Now, my mom is a nurse. She was a nurse for a long time. She came in and she's like, tell me where this baby is jaundice. Because I know everyone's like, well, I mean, jaundice is this. My sister has 3 babies, and all 3 of them had jaundice. And my grandma was the one who actually, like, told my sister what to do. So my grandma came in so she could look at him and tell me like, oh, maybe we should try this, or maybe ask him about this. And she's like, where's the jaundice? The baby, like, Finn was such a good baby, and so like, oh, yeah. He was from our point of view, he was perfectly fine.
Yeah, he was doing good.
Like, if he did have jaundice, it wasn't
severe.
Enough.
It was enough where we could go sit in the sun with him, and he'd be fine.
Yeah, and they didn't even do a UV light. Is that what it's called?
No, they didn't do anything.
They didn't do a UV light. So we asked him about that. We're like, well, if he has jaundice, why aren't you guys doing, like, treatments for it? And they said, well, it's not that bad of jaundice. And then one day we came in, and he magically didn't have jaundice no more.
Then he had something else.
But they, without our permission, without letting us know, they had my phone number to call us. They took him to x-rays because a nurse said she felt his hip popping out of place. And
if you don't know, x-rays are really, really bad for little kids, especially newborn preemies. It's not good at all.
And they didn't ask. They didn't have us sign a paper for consent. They didn't even let me know. The way I found out was because we came and he wasn't in his room no more. So I literally had a meltdown right there. I said, where's my son? Where did he go? What are you guys doing? And the nurse was like, oh, well, he's at x-rays right now. So they didn't let us know about that. which was complete BS because they at least could have told us, and at least one of us should have gone with him. And I don't want to hear, like, they don't take people's for x-rays, because I have gotten x-rays and Bailey has been in the room while I've gotten my x-rays.
Yeah. There's no reason that we shouldn't have been with him. When we told the nurses from before she even had Finn that one of us is going to be with the baby at all times. Like, when she was in the hospital, she was in her room and I was with Finn. That's just how it was. Nobody was with Finn without us.
And so then he couldn't leave because they had to figure out what the hip popping problem was. Then we get told that there's no problem. He's perfectly fine. And even everyone's like, why? Baby, that, like, stuff like, babies are so flexible. Their bones, like, they say that bones are like jelly or something.
Yeah.
Because they're just so flexible. And so they tell us that that's fine. And then we're like, okay, well then can he come home now? And no, he's not eating enough now. Didn't we already take care of that problem? So then a snowstorm hit, and we couldn't go see him for 2 days because we were just trapped in our apartment. The roads were so bad. And I remember just crying and feeling like a failure as a mom because I didn't get to go see him. And I remember thinking, like, what about if he thinks we don't love him? And so then we finally got to go see him again, and then New Year's Eve comes around.
And there's another big storm coming. Like, everybody knows about it. Like, we're supposed to prepare, don't go anywhere, this and that. And so we're begging the nurses and the doctors.
Literally, we even called Dr. Brewer to come and
evaluate him to make sure we could take him home, because the snowstorm was going to be like 3 days. Like, you couldn't go anywhere, do nothing. I missed work all the time. Like, it was just...
And so they come in, and he said, even the doctor was like, I don't understand why we're keeping him here. I think he should come home and be with his family. Like, that could help him a lot.
And the nurses still argued.
And the nurse practitioner said he wasn't healthy enough to come home. And the doctor was like, you know what? We're going to let him come home.
He said they're going to let him come home, and if he has any problems, to call them.
Yeah, to call him. And we would come in for a weight check every week, and his weight started going up because he was at home. And
we even left our regular doctor for the first few months of his life because Dr. Brewer said he could go home as long as we come and check with him every week. And so we did. We went to a new doctor for Finn every single week for the first 3 months of his life so he could make sure everything was fine.
And so he finally got to come home. They were really pissed off that he was coming home.
They were so mad.
They tried to keep us there as long as they could. They even took him out because we finally got to dress him in an outfit that we had brought. And they took him out just to show all the nurses how cute he was. So that was really aggravating because they did everything in their power to make us stay longer. And it was already, 9 or 10 at night?
So granted, at this point, he was born on the 19th and it's now New Year's. We're trying to get him to go home. And now they're like, okay, well, you guys need to watch this safety video on how to do the kids.
Well, everybody has to watch safety videos.
No, I know, but we were there for a week. We had plenty. They could have had us do it anytime.
Yeah, we were there for quite a while, but they could have said that we didn't even hear about it until...
And we never did a safety video with Talia.
Yes, we did. We watched a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah. On the TV. Okay, yeah, never mind.
And so he finally got to come home, and that's kind of where it ends. The hospital up here is absolutely trash, and the nurses here are trash.
And we're not dogging on all the nurses. There were
There was a couple nurses.
2 or 3 of them who did what we asked, and we were really good friends. It was like we show up, and it was a good time.
Like we even see them at the store sometimes, and they still stop us to ask about the kids and stuff.
Yeah, and they're just great.
But there's a lot of nurses there that
they just don't care.
Don't care about teen moms, and they're really, really mean. And up here, all the teen moms up here that I'm friends with have all gotten CPS called on them because they were a teen mom. Which I think is BS. They are great moms, and their kids are so happy and so healthy. It's ridiculous. And another thing is the hospital up here fed Finn somebody else's breast milk. And I know everyone's like, that's not a big deal. So my sister breastfed Talia for me because I did not get milk for Talia at all. Like, my milk supply didn't come in at all. And so she breastfed Talia for me. I'm not against that. If I know you and know that you're a healthy person and that you're not doing drugs or drinking alcohol, go ahead. Like, if you want to help me out and breastfeed my kids, sure. But I didn't know who this person was. I didn't know anything. They scribbled out the name off of it.
Yeah, you could see, if you ever put a label on, they don't come off easy. So they tried taking it off with their nails. You could see, like, all around the edges, they tried ripping it off. And then they just scribbled all over it with Sharpie so you couldn't read it. And, like, obviously, they had no reason to do that if it was Caitlin's milk. Because we did bring them milk. They had enough milk for all the times we were gone. And we brought it up to the nurse and I showed her. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I think one of the nurses just threw it away in the trash can over there. But, and we're like, well, why is it all scribbled off, and try to take it off because you guys usually don't do that. Like, there's no point to. And she's like, oh, I don't know. One of the nurses must just not have wanted anyone to see it. But that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah. They weren't considerate of anything, how we wanted it done, or...
They just didn't care about it.
Or about the baby's health. Like, again, Finn laid there for...
days.
The only time he got held was when my family, or Bailey or his family went and held him.
And the only time he could have other visitors is if we were there.
Yeah.
So we couldn't have people always there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we just wanted to tell our birth story and just let girls know, like, don't put up with BS.
You're the parents.
If you know what's right, tell them. Don't sit there and take it from them. Some of these nurses nowadays are horrible and
they just don't care.
So mean. But
and don't let them change your way on how you want to raise your kid.
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you all day about how they did this and they did that, or this is better or that's better, but at the end of the day, you're the parent and you raise your kids how you want to raise your kids.
Stop touching the table.
Sorry.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. We wanted to let people know our story and know that if you ever are having a situation like this and need to talk to someone, we're totally here. We totally understand how it feels to be treated horribly because you're a teen parent. So, yeah. We love you guys. Make sure to subscribe and watch our other videos. And
I did our makeup in the last one. It's
yeah,
pretty great.
Go watch him do my makeup in our last video. It's freaking hilarious.
Still waiting for Jeffree Star to hit me up.
Stop. But we will see you in our next video, or actually you won't. The next video is probably just gonna be just me. No, it's a different one. Oh. It'll be just me, but we definitely will have a lot more family videos, and we are going to have a video soon with the kids. We're gonna start putting our kids in the videos.
No, we tried today, but kids are kids.
They need to know that.
It's hard.
So bye guys. We'll see you in our next video.